The 2014 Stanley Cup Final, commonly known as the 2014 Stanley Cup Finals, was the championship series of the National Hockey League's 2013 Euro 14 season, and the culmination of the 2014 Stanley Cup playoffs. This was the 121st year of the Stanley Cup's presentation. The league realigned its divisions prior to the season, and changed the structure of the playoffs, but the championship series remained the same. The Western Conference champion Los Angeles Kings defeated the Eastern Conference champion New York Rangers 4-1 to win their second championship in franchise history, marking the first time since 2007 that the championship series was determined in fewer than 6 games. Their Stanley Cup Euro winning run of 26 playoff games was the longest of any Stanley Cup Euro winning team in history. Los Angeles had home ice advantage in the series, as the Kings finished with a better regular season record than the Rangers. The series started on June 4 and ended on June 13 with the Kings winning their second Stanley Cup in 3 seasons. It was the first meeting between teams from New York City and Los Angeles for a major professional sports championship since the Yankees and the Dodgers played in the 1981 World Series. The year 1981 was also the last time the Rangers and the Kings had met in the postseason, where the Rangers eliminated the Kings during the preliminary round of the playoffs. Teams New York Rangers This was New York's 11th appearance in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they were seeking their 5th Cup championship overall and their first one since 1994, 20 years earlier. Since their win in 1994, their only other post-season highlights were reaching the conference finals in 1997 and 2012. The Rangers entered the season after essentially swapping head coaches with the Vancouver Canucks. The Rangers and the Canucks fired John Tortorella and Alain Vigneault, respectively, and then coincidentally hired the other's former coach. While Vancouver, under Tortorella's first year, failed to make the playoffs, Vigneault guided New York to 96 regular season points and second place in the new Metropolitan Division. En route, the Rangers made a major trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning on March 5, acquiring Tampa Bay's captain Martin St. Louis in exchange for their own captain Ryan Callahan. The transaction happened as Callahan and the Rangers were not close to terms on a new contract, while St. Louis was unhappy at his initial omission from the Olympics by Steve Yzerman. In the first round of the playoffs, the Rangers eliminated the Philadelphia Flyers in 7 games. Then, in the second round against the Pittsburgh Penguins, New York overcame a 3-1 game deficit to win the series. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Rangers defeated the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games to capture their first Eastern Conference championship in 20 years. St. Louis' mother had died during the second round of the playoffs, which caused his Rangers teammates to rally around him, as they won the last 3 games against the Penguins to advance, followed by winning the first 2 games in Montreal despite struggling there in the regular season. In the process, the Rangers became the first team ever to play 2 full 7-game series in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs and still reach the Stanley Cup Finals, a feat later matched and exceeded in the same postseason by the Kings. Due to trading away captain Ryan Callahan and not naming a successor for the remainder of the season, Rangers were the first team since the 1972 Euro 73 Chicago Blackhawks to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals without a captain. By reaching the finals with the Rangers, Mats Sakalo made history when he became the first Norwegian to play in the Stanley Cup Finals. Los Angeles Kings Los Angeles made their 3rd appearance in the Stanley Cup Finals and sought to capture their 2nd Cup championship after winning it in 2012. They became the most recent team to make 3 straight conference finals, after the Detroit Red Wings did so in 2007 Euro 09. Before 2012, the Kings struggled in the postseason for much of their existence, except for the 1993 playoffs when they advanced beyond the second round for the first time in club history and went on to lose in the Cup Final. Much of the core from the Kings' 2012 championship remained on the team. Los Angeles made a late regular season trade on March 5, acquiring former Ranger Marian Gaborik from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Matt Frattin and 2 draft picks. The Kings then finished the regular season in 3rd place in the Pacific Division with 100 points. Los Angeles then needed 3 consecutive Game 7s to advance to the Cup Finals. The Kings became the first team in NHL history to win 3 Game 7s on the road in a single postseason. The team became the 4th team in NHL playoff history to win a 7-game series after losing the first 3 games, defeating the San Jose Sharks in the first round. The Kings eliminated their local rival Anaheim Ducks next, despite squandering a 2-0 series lead and then facing a 3-2 series deficit. In a rematch of the 2013 Western Conference Final, the Kings defeated the defending Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks in the Western Conference Final, who had forced a 7th game after trailing the series 3-1. Like their 2012 championship series, the Kings' 2014 Cup Finals was marked by a 3-0 series start of winning the first 2 games in overtime and the third as a shutout. With their 2014 Stanley Cup win, the Kings have the distinction of winning the first championship after the league's realignment. Their 2012 championship made them also the final team to win the Cup in the league's last full season before the realignment, as the 2012 Euro 13 season was shortened by a lockout. The Kings played a record 26 playoff games to win the Stanley Cup, the most ever for a champion. Both the Philadelphia Flyers and the Calgary Flames played 26 playoff games in 1 year, but both lost in the final. The series number in parentheses represents the players' total in goals or assists to that point of the entire 4 rounds of the playoffs. Game 1 the Kings overcame a 2-goal deficit to defeat the Rangers 3-2 in the first game. New York built their 2-0 lead in the first period by scoring 1:42 apart. Benoit Pouliot scored first on a breakaway after stealing the puck from Drew Doughty, then shooting past Jonathan Quick. Carl Hagelin then recorded a short-handed goal, as his shot was initially blocked by Quick but then rebounded off of Slava Voyanov's skate into the net. The Kings' comeback began with Kyle Clifford's goal late in the first period. Clifford shot it in from near the left post after receiving a pass from Jeff Carter. Doughty tied the game in the second period, beating Henrik Lundqvist from the left circle. In the third period, the Kings outshot the Rangers, 20-3, but neither Lundqvist nor Quick allowed any goals. In the final minute of regulation, Quick stopped Hagelin's shot on a breakaway, and seconds later Lundqvist barely kept Carter's wraparound shot from crossing the goal line. In overtime, Daniel Girardi turned over the puck in the New York zone, leading Mike Richards to pass the puck to Justin Williams, who then put the puck over Lundqvist to win the game. Game 2 the Kings overcame 3 2-goal deficits to defeat the Rangers 5-4 in double overtime. Including their Game 7 victory in the Western Conference Final against the Chicago Blackhawks, Los Angeles became the first team in Stanley Cup playoffs history to overcome 3 consecutive 2-goal deficits. With the first game also going to overtime, it marked the 3rd consecutive year that the first 2 games of the Stanley Cup Finals went to overtime. Ryan McKenna and Matt Zuccarello scored in the first period to give the Rangers a 2-0 lead. Jarrett Stoll then cut New York's lead in half at 1:46 of the second period. The teams then traded power play goals, with Martin St. Louis scoring for the Rangers and Willie Mitchell for the Kings. 11 seconds after Mitchell's goal, Derek Brassard gave New York a 4-2 lead after miscommunication between Mitchell and Jonathan Quick behind the Kings' net lead to a turnover. Dwight King's goal to cut the Rangers led to 4-3 early in the third period was controversial. King and McKenna were fighting for position in front of Henrik Lundqvist when Matt Green shot the puck from the right point. King made contact with Lundqvist in the crease as he touched the puck before it went into the net, but no goaltender interference was called. The referee ruled that the contact occurred after the puck already sailed past Lundqvist. Marian Gaborik then tied the game with an unassisted goal at 7:36 of the third during a scramble in front of the New York net. At 10:26 of double overtime, Dustin Brown deflected Mitchell's shot from the left point into the net to give the Kings the 5-4 win. This gave the Kings a 2-0 series lead as the series shifted to New York, despite never leading in either game during regulation time in Los Angeles. Game 3 the Kings won 3-0. led by the goaltending of Jonathan Quick, who shut out the Rangers on 32 shots. The first period was marked by tight checking, and only 9 shots were recorded by the two teams. Matt Zuccarello nearly scored for the Rangers at 12:37 of the first, but his shot went off the post and Quick's stick to stay out. With 1 second to play, Jeff Cutter's shot from the slot deflected off a Rangers defenseman past Henrik Lundqvist to put the Kings ahead by 1. In the second period, Jake Muzzin scored from the point on another deflection off a Rangers player. Mike Richards scored later in the period, on a 2-on-1, his attempted pass deflecting off a Rangers player back to him, leaving Lundqvist out of position to make the stop. Meanwhile, Quick stopped all 17 shots the Rangers put on the net in the second, including a stick save on Derek Brassard when he appeared to be well out of position to make the save. There was no scoring in the third and the Kings took a 3-0 series lead, putting the Rangers on the brink of elimination. Game 4 The Rangers avoided becoming the first team since 1998 to get swept in the finals by defeating the Kings 2-1. In a turnaround from Game 3, the Kings outshot the Rangers and lost as Rangers and minder Henrik Lundqvist saved 40 out of 41 shots. Like Games 1 and 2, the Rangers scored the first 2 goals, on goals by Benoit Pouliot and Martin St. Louis. Dustin Brown scored for the Kings in the second period to cut the margin to 2-1. In the third period, the Kings put pressure on the Rangers and nearly tied the score when the puck slid past Lundqvist to rest on the goal line before being cleared away. Earlier, in the first period, another shot by the Kings also rested on the goal line and did not go in. In all, the Kings outshot the Rangers 15-1 in the third, but did not score. Game 5 The Kings clinched their second Stanley Cup in franchise history, their first since 2012, by defeating the Rangers 3-2 on home ice. This was the first Stanley Cup Euro clinching game since 2010 to be determined in overtime, and the first time that the home team had the overtime Stanley Cup winner since 1980. The Kings played 26 playoff games on their road to the trophy, more than any previous Stanley Cup Euro winning team. The Kings grabbed the lead in the first period with an even-strength goal by Justin Williams. In the second, Chris Kreider converted on a Rangers power play before Brian Boyle scored a short-handed goal to put the road team up by 1 with 30 seconds left. In the third, Marian Gaborik tied the game at 2 on a Kings power play. No more goals were scored in regulation and the game went to overtime. The first overtime period featured 1 penalty for the Kings, but the Rangers were unable to score on the ensuing power play. With 5 minutes to go in the second overtime period and the Kings on a 3-on-2 breakaway, Tyler Toffoli fired a shot that Henrik Lundqvist kicked out directly to Alec Martinez, who fired it into the open net for the game winner. At that time, the Kings had outshot the Rangers 51-30. It was the longest game in Kings history. Series quotes. Starting back up with it now is Martinez in a 3-on-2. Clifford gave it a cross. It's held and a shot, save, rebound, score. The Stanley Cup Euro Martinez. Alec Martinez will lead the rush to center. To Kyle Clifford. Toffoli shoots, great save, rebound. They score. Alec Martinez gets the goal. The Los Angeles Kings have won the Stanley Cup. Picked up by Martinez. Martinez, to Clifford. Feeds it right side. Toffoli with a shot, save, rebound, score. Alec Martinez has won the Stanley Cup for the Los Angeles Kings. And royalty reigns again in the NHL. The Kings have won their second Stanley Cup in 3 years. What an incredible end to an incredible season. Thank you to the players, to the teams, and our fans all of you. These Kings marched through California, defeated the defending Stanley Cup champ, and beat the Rangers in a spectacular final. It starts at the top with Phil and Nancy Anschutz, Dan Beckerman, Dean Lombardi, Luc Robitaille, and Daryl Sutter and the coaching staff. But it doesn't happen without these great players. For the second time in 3 seasons, it's my honor to present it to Dustin Brown. Rosters, Years indicated in boldface under the finals appearance column signified that the player won the Stanley Cup in the given year. New York Rangers Los Angeles Kings Los Angeles Kings are Euro 2014 Stanley Cup champions, one played both center and wing. Coaching and administrative staff: Philip Schutz, Nancy Ankutz, Daniel Beckerman, Dean Lombardi, Luke Rubitaille, Rob Blake, Jeffrey Solomon, Michael Futer, Darryl Sutter, John Stevens, Davis Payne, Bill Ranford, Kelly Cheeseman, Michael Altieri, Jack Ferreira, Mike O'Connell, Nelson Emerson, Alan McCauley, Mark Ionetti, Lee Collins, Tony Gasparini, Marshall Dickerson, Zach Ziegler, Darren Granger, Chris Kingsley, Dana C. Bryson, Mills Hirayama. Engraving notes: Jeff Schultz played 67 regular season and 2 playoff games for the Manchester Monarchs, AHL. He was recalled during the playoffs and played 7 playoff games for Los Angeles, including 1 in the conference finals. He spent the whole regular season in the minors, and did not play in the Stanley Cup Finals. Los Angeles requested that his name be included. It was included for playing in the conference finals and playing in his 8th NHL season. Colin Fraser played 33 regular season games for Los Angeles, but no playoff games. Fraser was sent to the minors in February. He played 10 games for Manchester Monarchs before getting injured. He later rejoined the Kings for the playoffs in April. Fraser did not play half of the Kings' regular season games, or a single game in finals, and Los Angeles did not request that his name be included. Lyndon Bay played in 18 regular season games and spent most of the regular season in the minors before being recalled during the playoffs, where he did not play. Los Angeles did not request his name be included. Andrew Campbell played in 3 regular season games and spent most of the regular season in the minors before being recalled during the playoffs, where he did not play. Los Angeles did not request his name be included. Edward P. Roski, Jr. asked that his name not be included, so that another member could get his name on the Stanley Cup. Rob Led and Ted Fick, who were engraved on cup with Los Angeles in 2012, agreed not to have their names engraved in 2014 so that 2 other scouts could be their name on the Stanley Cup for the first time. 6 out of 12 scouts had their name on the Stanley Cup in 2014. Included on team picture, but left off the Stanley Cup: Colin Fraser, Ryan Van Assen, Chris Pikoski, Denver Wilson, Bobby Harthaker. Television: this was the last year under the league's current Canadian TV contracts with CBC and the cable network TSN, and RDS. The NHL's 12-year contract with Rogers Communications would then take effect beginning next season, with English-language national coverage of the finals being sub-licensed to CBC, and French-language telecasts being sub-licensed to TVA Sports. TSN will only be showing regional games for Toronto, Ottawa and Winnipeg starting the fall of 2014. In the United States, NBCSN broadcast games 3 and 4, while NBC televised the remaining games. NBC Sports originally planned to repeat its coverage pattern from the last few seasons. NBCSN would televise Game 2 and 3, while NBC would broadcast Game 1, and then Games 4 to 7. After the league scheduled Game 2 on the day of the 2014 Belmont Stakes, coverage of Games 2 and 4 was switched so NBC's telecast of the horse race would serve as lead-in programming to Game TWP. Due to the death of a family member, NBC lead play-by-play announcer Mike Emmerich missed Game 1. Kenny Albert, who was also the Rangers radio announcer for WEPN and announced several national games for NBC-NBCSN, filled in for Emmerich in the first game. Aftermath: the Kings failed to make the playoffs in the following season, making them only the 5th team in NHL history to fail to make the playoffs after winning the Stanley Cup. Joining the 1967 Euro 68 Toronto Maple Leafs, 1969 Euro 70 Montreal Canadiens, 1995 Euro 96 New Jersey Devils, and the 2006 Euro 07 Carolina Hurricanes. References